Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the interview. And today I got a special guest. I got my frat brother, and y'all may see him all over the internet right now. He's going crazy. Entrepreneur, husband, father, and if y'all didn't know, a wealth building coach. We got Christopher Colbert, ladies and gentlemen, man. We got Superstar. What's up, man?
What's up, big bro?
Finally got you out here.
What's good?
Yeah, we've been trying to work this out for a minute, and the stars lined up, and we finally got you.
Appreciate
So
that.
I appreciate you coming out. So let's jump right into it, man. Let people know who you are and what you do.
If it was a 10-second, 30-second pitch, I help people scale their business. I help people think about all of the various different ways to monetize their particular skill set or their passion outside of doing whatever they're currently doing. And I also sell money, meaning I help people get large amounts of money and funding for their business to scale up. But yeah, man, that's pretty much what I
Did
do.
you just say you sell money?
Sell money.
Okay,
Man.
break that down because that is very that's a very interesting way to frame that. I like the way and you've got my attention. Break that down.
Right. So if you have a funding problem, I solve that problem and I charge you.
If you have a funding problem, you solve that problem. Okay. All right. All right. So you pretty much the plug.
I'm the, I'm the plugs plug.
Right on. Right on. All right, man. So let's talk about where you're from. I mean, generally historically I've interviewed people from Los Angeles, and every now and then I get somebody that's from somewhere else, and I love to do that because I get to compare experiences. So you are from Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, straight out of Cleveland. Got it
Yeah.
on today too. That's pretty dope.
Born and raised.
Yeah, born and raised Cleveland, Ohio, inner city. For anybody that's listening, if they know anything about Cleveland, y'all know about Bone Thugs and Harmony. They're from 99th and St. Clair. I'm from 105th and St. Clair.
So, what was it like growing up in Cleveland? Because, like I said, my audience is mainly Los Angeles, so I think it's a good perspective to share a different,
Yeah,
this different side of the country, really.
it is definitely a different side of the country. And while there's some prevalent things in Los Angeles, meaning different colors, I'll say that we have different, like, it's not really a colored thing, it's a turf thing or a side of town type of situation. But I jokingly say, you think of your worst neighborhood in California, and it would be considered a suburb to Cleveland.
I can believe that because we're definitely live in paradise, and and Los Angeles. I mean, the weather's great. We're right by the beach. We got palm trees. Everybody got nice houses. So yeah, I can imagine.
Right.
So it's a big difference from growing up in LA. It's fast paced.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it's fast paced out here. It's a lot of lights, camera, and action. What's it like growing up like in Cleveland? Outside of that, like what's the pulse on Cleveland?
So it's really, if you think about it, it's like an environment where it's survival of the fittest. Growing up in inner city Cleveland is really like hustle, grind, um, get it out the mud best way you can, maybe even opportunistic, take advantage of situations when you know. So my exposure to killings, inner city violence, drug activity, all of that was like normalized. So it's rough, bro. But I like to say I was fortunate because I got an opportunity to see outside of what I was introduced to for a majority of my childhood life. Um, Particularly going to the military really changed my life. But we can dive a little bit more deeper into that. But Cleveland, I would say you definitely have a sense of wanting to stay within the city, not really wanting to expand outside of the city. Um,
I mean, because from what I know, there's nothing that I can think about that drives a person to Cleveland. Like, I don't know,
right.
is there any like landmarks, any national landmarks there? Any of that?
I think we have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Other than that, like when LeBron was a big thing in Cleveland.
Right. Right. Still is. Right. I think he's gonna go back to in his career. I think it'd be smart, but that's for another conversation. But
Right, right. But I mean, we do have so Superman started right off the street I was born on, which is 105 and Amore. And so historically, you could see where they showed instead of Smallville, it was actually Glenville, and Glenville is the subsect of the city. I mean, of the area that I lived in. Instead of you saying something about Smallville, it actually derived out of
you're
Glenville.
talking about the show, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So if somebody was to talk about the history of Superman and being from Smallville as the town, so to speak, it like I said, it derived out of Glenville, which is the area in which I was born and raised in. And then you've got other actors that they don't. Diana Ross. There's a lot of actors and actresses that literally had paved a way that came out of Cleveland, but you don't hear a lot about their life in Cleveland. Like
right, because they have to come here or New York or yeah.
right. Even Steve Harvey's got a street named after him.
Is he from Ohio?
I believe he's from Cleveland as well.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Most people don't, like I said. But they had his family still lives on a street. I think it's 112th and Superior. And his family still owns that house, and like they call that street Steve Harvey Way.
All right, rightfully so. I think he deserves his own street. He's a mogul. Yeah. So I like to ask this question to everybody too, because I think no matter where you're from, it gives you some sort of advantage over the rest of the world, right? I always say when you're from LA, the most common thing I've gotten was, well, you kind of see everything. You always you're motivated by living in LA. What's one of the advantages that you think that you've gotten from being from Cleveland now that you at this point well traveled?
I took with me the mentality, even when I went to the military. I said, look, I saw shootings and saw people get shot at a very young age. And so going into the military, I said, if I can make it out of Cleveland, I can make it anywhere. And most people really don't think about how deep that is. And so you take a person out of an element that was a norm, and you place them in another environment, a totally foreign environment, and they're able to survive, and not just survive, but thrive in that other environment. That was me. Like every place I've been on this earth, I've literally changed or broke the odds. Even in the military, as a young inner city hard head person that come from a background that otherwise you'd be like, nah, there's no way he would have been a sergeant. Like, meaning I went to the military and I was a supervisor of people that had already been in the military tons of years before me. I was given the blueprint. Okay, you got to do X, Y, and Z. Then you got to interview. You got to answer these questions. You got to do this. You got to do that. They gave me the blueprint. I said, okay, boom, follow the blueprint. Then I became a sergeant before age of 21. Sergeant means you went up through the ranks, and you get actually to supervise other people.
How much time do you spend in the military?
Only 4 years. That's what's crazy.
Wow.
3 years. At my 3-year mark, I made sergeant. And that's like not even your norm considering my job. It's hard to get promoted within the military. But when they give you the blueprint, I did things like I'll give you an example. So they said if you scored the highest on physical training, meaning like push-ups, sit-ups, 2-mile run, we'll give you an award if you do 2 consecutive max, meaning I did the highest amount of push-ups, the highest amount of sit-ups, and the fastest 2-mile run for my age category. I did maxed 2 of them consecutively, and I get an award. So guess what I did? I said, well, sign me up for as many of these jokers as possible so I can get as many awards to max out the section that said you get 100 points for awards or whatever the case may be.
Let's spend some time right here on the military. I got a follow-up question about Cleveland too, but I want to add this in. Like, so that's an interesting experience because it does something to you. What do you think the military did to you or did for you, should I say?
Yeah.
Mentality wise.
Right. So I'll tell you this. I was a hothead before going to the military. In fact,
That's probably why you went.
well, actually, no, I'm going to give that story to you. I'm glad you asked because most people don't know that prior to the military, I was living on my own, meaning I was a minor living on my own. I had a 2001 Ford Ranger that I was leasing. I was selling drugs. I was in high school and I had a job. I was probably bringing in about $10,000 a month as a 16, 17-year-old.
Mm.
And so that's big money to a person back in 2000,
That's big money
2001.
for somebody in 2023. Talking about.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you do the math. That's 120,000 a year.
Right. That could be big money to some
Yeah.
people.
No, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But but anyway, so
big money over here, y'all.
I'm not big money. I'm not big money. But anyway, so I went into the military losing all of that and making $1,000 a month. And when I say $1,000 a month, it was no more than that. It was like probably like 900 something actually, to be exact, at that time. So my truck got repoed. Only bills I really had at that moment now is just a cell phone, and then shortly after that, I got a woman pregnant. But I'll get back to the point of changing my mindset.
I'm sorry, real quick. Where were you stationed at?
Basic training was Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and then when I got stationed at my actual duty station, it was Fort Hood, Texas.
Okay.
Right. So, so I was rebellious and didn't really want to stay in the military. So I was trying to get kicked out in basic training. And then I was introduced to a guy from Alabama that had one gold tooth. It was one of these big teeth right here, right?
Major pain.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking too. So he told me, he said Colbert, because that's, your last name is what they call you in the military. Private Colbert is probably what he called me. And he said, do you want to let these people dictate what you're going to be? And when he said that, we can all kind of figure out who he's talking about these people are. And so when he said that, I said, you know what? No, I don't. And so that was the click that says, Chris, get your stuff together, do what you need to do. And then he also followed up with, this is only temporary, meaning the basic training is talking, yelling, and all that other stuff, doing the push-ups in your face, spitting and yelling and spewing out. Right. This is all temporary, but at some point you're going to get to it like a regular job.
Right.
And I had already had a previous regular job. And so he was like, yeah, but you want to actually determine your future. And so I didn't know that how those words were going to affect me like in today. But at that moment I was like, yeah, I'm listening to what he's saying. And so I went on and moved forward with not trying to get kicked out of the military. And so if we fast forward, talking about the income, it was nowhere near what I was previously doing. But like I said, when you drop a person anywhere and they can do what's needed to succeed. I had a kid out of wedlock. Then I got married the following year. Then I had another kid. Then I went to Iraq and then spent 22 months in Iraq.
Wow.
Right. So all of these things compiled up together is like, okay, this person come from an inner city where all he knew was somewhat of a fast life, not as fast as probably like in LA, but somewhat of a fast life, dealing with drugs, dealing with women, not really having anybody control what I was doing, so to speak. And was kind of rebellious. And then, so at that point, it gave me the structure, because your question was, how did it help me? It gave me the structure to be able to fall in line and understand that there's a bigger picture, right? Meaning I can learn from these people. I can learn skill sets. I can learn, and I could actually meet different people from different walks of life outside of what I thought was the best thing since sliced bread was Cleveland, Ohio. And so, because I was dying to get back there.
Wait, you thought Cleveland was the best thing since sliced bread?
Oh yeah, off top.
That mean you had yet to be to come to LA or something like that. That's what that means.
Right. So, but yeah, so it gave me an opportunity to learn, to build relationships, to interact with people outside of inner city Cleveland. Right. Inner city Cleveland is pretty much predominantly Black. It's hands down. Most people don't know that. Like even when Black folks try to move to another area, it's often where the other people you try to move around will leave.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how segregated Cleveland
Right.
is for the most part, right? There are a few little outlier cities that, they kind of promote and cultivate
Mm-hmm.
a mixed community, but for the most part, and so going into the military, it's like normally it would be a culture shock, but it was definitely different. But I learned, and I actually had people that I interacted with uh that cared about me that were of other races and ethnicities.
Yeah, I mean, that had to be a huge part of your life, like you said. You going from small town Cleveland essentially to now you're in this incubator full of everybody from around the world
Yeah,
essentially, and then they send you off to Iraq for 2 years,
yeah,
which is another whole situation.
yep.
Yeah, I mean that had to cultivate uh your personality. It had to teach some. I've never, I couldn't imagine what that would have done for me. I want to ask this question in on the back end of the question I asked before about the advantages that you feel like you got because you are from Cleveland. I think wherever advantages are, lies disadvantages as well.
Mm.
So, what do you think now that you well traveled and you've been around? Now that you've learned things, you're like, man, I wish I would have learned this earlier. What are some disadvantages you felt like that you had to overcome because you are from Cleveland?
Disadvantages was me believing that because I'm from this particular area, that they would embrace this new version of Chris, meaning family members, old friends, new philosophies that I had embraced, meaning we don't have to hustle and bustle. We can legitimize businesses. Like if you think about the drug activity, any dope dealer has really multiple skill sets. One specifically, marketing.
Yep.
They have accounting. They have
Sales, customer service.
sales. I mean, you can
Right.
there's a laundry list of things
Mm-hmm.
that are skill sets that they've perfected
Right.
that can be translated or transitioned into a legitimized business.
Yeah.
Um, and I try to bring those thought processes back to some individuals that that I was close to. And so if I could talk about a little bit about the fact that there's probably five guys that I hung around with in Cleveland, Ohio.
Mm.
And out of the five guys that I hung around with, that I did a lot of the dirt that we did back in Cleveland, Ohio, only one of them is living.
Wow.
And so it's me and that one other individual that's living right now. And what's what's so alarming behind that is that the ones that died, they were in still in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing against, even though they were still in the streets, not necessarily doing drugs anymore, selling drugs anymore, but they had not legitimized their hustle.
Mm-hmm.
And so me and the other guy that's still alive, we have legitimized our businesses. We have
Right.
you see what I'm saying? So, and not to say that tragedy couldn't happen to either one of us or anybody that decides to uh perfect or actually have a business model, but it's just the luck of the draw happened to be that they were still in the streets,
Right.
um not having a legitimate business.
So I want to. So let's. That's a perfect segue into what you do now as a professional. Because you have now settled in Northern California.
Right.
Yeah, I see you ain't going back to Cleveland, right? Um, you have now settled in Northern California.
Right.
You are a businessman, entrepreneur, and your company, your business is Rich Before 50.
Right.
Talk about that. Talk about what that means.
Yeah. So Rich Before 50 came to me some years back where it was a quest. And it was not necessarily just to have a monetary dollar amount to tie to me and my family, but it was more so to be a well-rounded, rich person,
Mm-hmm.
meaning financially, spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
relationship wise, physically and mentally
Mm-hmm.
rich and fit. And so before 50. But see, most people say, well, I'm already 50, Chris. So how can you help me in this particular endeavor? And so it's not really more so the age than it is the mindset.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my tagline on my actual website for the clothing. But Rich Before 50, I come to the realization that we can all live rich lives, but the most impactful way you can identify as a person that's rich is when you're providing more impact than you are receiving income.
Mm, I like that. And also that question, was it rich before 40 before?
No, it was never Rich Before 40.
Okay, I don't know why I thought it was rich before 40 at one point. I was like, he changed rich before 50. All
No,
right, yeah.
no.
But I like it for a few reasons. One, I never heard you break it down like that, and that's awesome because the way I would see it, and probably the average person, was it's strictly money.
Yeah.
That's what we're focused on. But I love the fact that you are breaking it down and you're making it more about the mentality. You're making it more about the mindset. You're making it more about the lifestyle beyond the finances.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. I think it's awesome, and I like the idea of most people are trying. Nobody's really when I want to say pinpointing before 50. Everybody's trying to before 30 or whatever the case may be.
Right.
So I like it because it also gives a person, it breeds patience.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
Delayed gratification is one of the most impactful things that has been talked to me about, like, and identifying how we don't always have to jump at certain things. Right. And truth be told, like, I listened to Magic Johnson talk about how he built up companies and then sold them,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to somebody that might say, oh, well, I could sell this right now and get a profit.
Mm-hmm.
And owning multiple different businesses, you get to see, like, on the real estate side, right? I bought some land years ago and I got letters, like, I can say 2016, I think I bought this one plot of land, but I got some letters recently that'll say, hey, we'll give you $25,000 for this piece of plot of land that I paid $8,000 for years ago that
Mm-hmm.
I haven't touched
Right,
the
thinking about
dirt.
it. Right.
It's a delayed gratification.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, yes, Rich Before 50 is it gives a person an opportunity to have a smart goal, to have your whole life rounded before you become really truly the retirement age, which is
Right.
like
No,
55.
you're right. You're right. So I want to ask this. So what were you doing prior to you now being on your entrepreneur journey? Because something has to lead you there, right? Was you working? Was you working at Chase Bank? Or like what was you doing prior to you becoming a full-time entrepreneur?
So I worked for tons of years after the military for the government, meaning I worked for the state of California, so that's state government.
What did you do?
I helped other people that was in the military, help veterans.
Okay,
So
nice.
so I worked for them from at least 5 to 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that was in human resources. So most of my actual DNA is helping people. So
Mm-hmm.
if you look at your why and you go start drilling back to everything that you've really done, it's just been me specifically. My why is really truly to help people.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why I've selected when I went to college, I selected the degrees that I end up selecting.
Right, because you got a handful of degrees, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, but go ahead and drop them. What you got, man? What you sitting on?
I don't put any credence on.
Man, what you sitting on? We want to know, man. If the people want to know, because you verified. I mean, that's you work for that.
Communications,
yeah,
as well, bachelor's,
yeah,
master's in counseling as
well.
And then I did project management as well. So
nice.
So, but to answer your question, so I worked for the state, then I worked for the federal government. So I made a transition for money from the state, which I loved that job and was passionate about that job, helping veterans get their veteran benefits,
right,
et cetera. And then I went to another job on the federal government, helping veterans get jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the Department of Labor on the federal side. And then after that, I went to government contracting with a company called HealthNet, which I believe is owned by Centene, helping veterans get health care outside of the VA hospital, because it was called a Veterans Choice Program.
I think HealthNet has expanded too. Now I feel like, they're like the whole
huge
cover California now.
Yep. And so secondary to that, before that though, trying to find places where I could just make more money, those never worked for me. In
Mhm.
fact, most people don't know I've been fired, I think a total of 4 or 5 times because I decided to chase the dollar versus the purpose.
Mhm.
And those, I mean, you can see it. Anytime you're not passionate about something, it shows up.
Yeah, I always say that. I always say like when people be like, I don't like my job. I'm like that. I don't want to hear that. I don't think there's no such thing as a bad job for me. If
Right.
somebody likes to do it, then that's what you
Right.
should do, no matter what it is.
Yep.
That's pretty interesting because so you work for the government, and then what happened to where you said, okay, I'm going this route. I'm going this route now, with going to be an entrepreneur. Like
Yeah.
what was that moment like?
So I got a severance package, and they decided they didn't want to keep me on from a particular entity. And what happened was I said, instead of me
So you got
continuing,
fired.
actually, no, well, yes and no.
Right.
So I got a severance package, and then I applied again to go
Mhm.
back. But at that moment, I was literally thinking, I have enough money saved to go into real estate.
Right.
And so I bought, well, before I bought the properties, I had already owned some land, but I was like, I want to go into investing in a real estate. And so I got a job, and then with the same company. And then I said, you know what? I no longer want to work for somebody else. And it was working me like crazy. It was like a program management job, and I didn't like it. I literally was like, I don't like having to do all of this for this company.
Mhm.
And I'm managing large portfolios, coordinating with all of these various different CEO, directors, et cetera, all these big wigs. And I'm like, I don't really want to do this. I can make $200,000 a year on my own versus
Right.
me making $200,000 for this particular company. And so that was the catalyst to me. And like I said, I already had some money saved. And so
Mhm.
that was the catalyst for me. And then my wife works for the state. So I was like, okay, if this doesn't work,
She's straight. Yeah, we get.
we good. Like, she got a paycheck. You feel me? So,
Yeah.
and she was 100% on board. But, but I know our characteristic styles are different. I mean, and our love languages are different. And we kind of have like a yin to our yang. So I have to, when having a conversation with her, it's like, okay, I've got to give you my plan, my game plan.
Yeah, let's you know what, I'm glad that you brought your wife up, because
Yeah.
this is something I like to ask every married person
Yeah.
that is on the show. How important is your wife to your development?
Extremely. And me and her, we debate, not really argue, but we debate back and forth in regards to level of support.
Mhm.
I dig at her and say, hey, yeah, you should be out here fixing the property.
Right.
But nevertheless, it's extremely important because um, when you have somebody that can actually um, pick up a load, because
Mhm.
life is a load. I
Mhm.
mean, when you have children, or whether you're just trying to manage a business,
Mhm.
paying bills, all of these various different things, stresses of family, people dying, all of these things. So when you have somebody that equally can carry whatever the load is,
Mhm.
it might not to you, it might not seem like a really big load, but if they can carry that, it gives you the ability to focus
Yeah.
on something else, right?
Yeah.
And so, hands down, going to invest in the real estate, and then all the way investing in real estate in Ohio, where I'm from, and living in Sacramento, California, somebody had to take the kids to school.
Right. Right. Yeah. Right. You're right. Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and somebody has to cook, somebody has to
Right.
clean, somebody has to make sure that we're not
Somebody has to take care of the family.
facts.
Yeah.
So, hands down, it gives you a sense of comfort. It gives you a sense of peace. It gives you a sense of richness because you don't have to worry about all of the things, right?
Mhm.
And then but her level of communication and trust and belief and motivation and all of these various different positive affirmations over my life and what I was doing in uncharted territories. I had never I didn't have a mentor in specifically, hey, this is what you do when you buy a house. This is like to be able to coach me
Right.
through all of the different phases of what I needed to really learn. And before we started, we talked about some of these barriers and some of these uh, failures you have to actually go through yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so but it was okay because the stresses of all of those things, I didn't have to undergo them myself.
Right, right.
You see what I'm saying? So having a loving and understanding and uh, uh, positive spouse is like vital, bro.
You know, and the book Think and Grow Rich, it has an entire chapter on, you know, your wife, or
Uh-huh.
and it talks about, not just the mentality, it talks about sex. I mean, it goes into it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think that's so important, because one of the biggest success book, Think and Grow Rich,
Mhm.
it talks about how important
Yeah.
your spouse is. And yeah, I think you're right. Your spouse is completely, I mean, without that, there's no success almost,
Right.
for most people. I can't
Yeah.
say for some, everybody has a thing, but for the average person, you need that partnership to be successful.
For sure.
Um, man, yeah, man. I appreciate you bringing that up. So I want to go into you now as a family man, because having children. You talked about having children while you're in the military,
Hmm.
and man, I mean, that's I mean, you had children while you were a child yourself.
Exactly. Yes.
So what was that like? How was it raising children at such a young age? You didn't have to literally be in Iraq. Like, come on, bro. Like, you under, like, what is, I couldn't even imagine. Like, what was that like?
So let's stay on the Iraq part, because my commander, the person that had to control over whether I could have stayed in the United States or had to go to Iraq, um, I actually we have a business relationship where I actually coach him, and then we're probably going to invest together too. Because, but let me get back to the military. Um, I tried everything under the sun to not go to Iraq,
Right.
and I tried to say, man, I got a brand new kid, da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, my wife, she embraced the fact that I had a child outside of our marriage. And for those that know a little bit more about my life, they know that most times when you're newly married and then to have to endure or embrace a child with somebody else's mom, those type of situations don't always pan out to be as fair.
So hold on. So just so we clear this up for people that are listening. So you had the child prior to you getting married or
Yeah.
after you got married?
So the child was born November of 2022. I think it was 2022. I had got married August of 2022. So it was the same year, but I got married in August. The child was born in November.
Mm-hmm.
So for anybody that's want to do the math and
Wait,
figure out,
22, you talking about last year?
no, not 2020,
I'm like,
2002,
I'm
2002.
like, yo, bro, what you talking about? I'm like, yo, yes.
I've been married.
I don't know if your wife know about that one.
I've been I've been married for 20 years, but so
Hey, congratulations, man. That's fucking amazing, bro. And the reason why I give you a round of applause, because you are a stand-up black man, first of
appreciate that.
all.
Appreciate that.
And our generation really hasn't been, and we don't really embrace marriage as we should.
Right.
And I'm happy to see that you're doing it, because I think we need to bring that shit back. And
For sure.
I'm so happy that you've done that. 20 years. I mean, bro, my hat's off to you.
Appreciate you.
But yeah, sorry, continue. So yeah, so
So
you were,
not
yeah,
2022, but
yeah, I
2000,
declared that for you.
2002. Yeah, I think that's the right year. 2002. Yeah, because I went to Iraq in 2004.
So you had a kid. So you got married in 2000 in November. No, sorry, run it back.
So I got married in August 21st.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm wrong on these doggone days of life,
Yeah, right.
bro, you
She watching right now.
No, I got married August 21st, 2002.
Mm.
My son was born November 25th, 2002.
Wow. Okay. Wow. And you said that she embraced that.
Yeah, and it wasn't easy. Like none of this stuff is easy, bro. Like no, we were teenage married.
Right. Wow.
And the following year, my wife had my other son.
Mm-hmm.
So like when we go back to the money, to the amount of not knowing how to raise children, to alcoholism at that time, I was a drunk.
Wow.
Like there's a lot of stuff. So we had to unpack a lot of stuff, right? And so yes, we've weathered that, a lot of storms.
Yo, and that's, I want to sit on this, right, because this is huge. What you're saying right now, which probably would have taken people. Some people, yeah, right. Some people couldn't have handled that on both sides.
Yeah.
On the stress of you trying to figure out how to keep this family together, and then the stress of her, feeling like maybe embarrassed a little bit,
Of
or
course.
or whatnot, and deciding to at such a young age. 'Cause you said y'all were teenagers.
Yep.
So you got married at what, 18, 19?
I think I was 19.
Wow. So you got married at 19, and now you have a child that's not with your wife.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yep.
You had a heavy load.
Yeah. And
so what was the trick? I just want to know what was the trick of getting through something that strenuous on your new marriage? Like, you just got married, and then 2 months later you had a child not with your wife. Like, how did y'all manage to get through that?
So you probably would need her on the show, because more of it was more of it was her accepting it, because the premise was, I didn't know if this child was my child.
Right. Okay.
Although the mother was very convincing, to the point to where she said, look, I wasn't doing anything with anybody else unprotected besides you. So you can do whatever you need to do to determine whether you want to, be a part of this kid's life or not. But what happened was, immediately after he was born, I got a blood test and I found out it was 99%.
Right.
I set myself up for regular monthly payments. Nice. And, trying to even embrace like a dual, raising a child in dual households, when a mother may have been in love with the father of the kid. Right. And actively, I was what people would call an a-hole.
Right. Now, were you in Iraq during this time as well, or were you here? Were you home during this time?
I was here. This was in Texas. So this is when I first got to the duty station at Fort Hood. And actively, I was courting my now wife, right? And like you said, I mean, it could have been definitely, not could have, but it was definitely a form of embarrassment. Like, like, dude, you said you love me, and here's this kid coming out the woodwork, and so often when I tell this story, I give her a lot of love and compassion, because she had an opportunity to completely say, forget me. Right.
Of course. Of course.
And so, to see things through, as we, like, if we were to rewind our whole life story, she's been a very, very strong person to have endured combat, me leaving, right, for enough time, dealing with me having addiction to substance, alcohol, me having, we didn't even touch on the first of the infidelity, but nevertheless, enduring a lot of these various different things, bro.
Right.
Like,
I mean, you were 1920. I mean, I couldn't tell you what I was doing in 1920. So
right. And so even if we go and go into the last 2 years of my son living with us in our household and graduating high school, living with us, and then still, like, he lives with us now today, and her being a true mother figure, not that his mom wasn't a mother figure, but just being well,
because she's in the house, right? She's the mom of the house, right? I totally get it.
Yeah, because I wanted to clarify that before.
I got 2 baby mamas too, man. I'm with you. I know what it is.
but I wanted to clarify that for anybody that's listening.
Right.
Not that his actual biological mom wasn't that.
Right.
I mean, just my wife being able to step into that role
in your household,
in my household. And so, and then to go from you seeing me every day, working a 9 to 5, being there in the house, to deciding to go full-fledged entrepreneurship, and then leaving to go to Ohio to purchase these properties and fix these properties. And then going to various different conferences, speaking engagements where, I'm in front of large crowds talking to them about, setting up a business, structuring business, helping them getting funding, to even being down here, on this show, right? To be able to be okay and understand and to embrace these various different changes. Um, she's a superstar, bro. Like, yeah.
No, absolutely, man. I mean,
Uh,
women are a lot stronger than us, especially emotionally. We can't handle
yep.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We really can't. Like, physically, we can handle a lot, but when it comes to those emotions and feelings, man, they live in the big bag on that.
For sure. For sure.
So man, shout out to your wife, man, because that is that's an incredible story. I'm glad you shared that and we're vulnerable about that, because I'm definitely going to clip that up and put it on Instagram,
For sure.
because I think people need to hear that and see that. See
Yeah.
that real moment, because that's a real situation that people go through and they don't know how to handle it. They don't know what it's going to look like later. And you are an example of it can still be successful.
Yes.
And so I'm very glad you shared that, and I'm proud of you, man.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you, man, because like I said, at 19 years old, and I listen, bro. 19, I couldn't tell you. So, man, amazing. So, I know. So we talked about fathership. We talked about what it's like being a husband.
Yeah.
I want to get into a little bit about your social media, because you got your work cut out on social media, man. You've been doing your thing. So, what is social media being for you? Because you now you're an influencer at this point. You know what I mean? So,
and I really don't like that term. I don't like, so.
But you have influence.
I know.
So I mean, it's what it is.
It is what it is.
Hey, matter of fact, embrace it right now.
Embrace it
right now, because you keep fighting it, you're gonna lose it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So just embrace it, man. It's all right. That's what you are.
Right. And so with social media, oftentimes people actually think that whether it's lifestyle marketing or things that we actually are doing, me and my wife, when we taking trips and stuff like that. So,
right, because you taking trips, man. Hey, because I'm gonna tell you right now, you flexing on the gram, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. You flexing, you know what I'm saying? I saw you post your I saw you apply for some credit, and you didn't reveal 20 bands. Okay, Mr. Bandman. But that's that. I like the way you're doing it though. You're doing it because it's on brand.
Yeah.
For you. So yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to give you.
No, it's good. I just wanted to paint the picture that anything that I've ever posted, specifically good things, because there are definitely some bad that could potentially be posted, like if there was a death, because I've had some, and they're not really necessarily bad, just sad moments. I'll say that, right? I've posted some of my family members when they've passed away and stuff like that, but for the most part, credit, trips, buying assets, getting around other people that know more than you, all of the various different relationships I've been able to cultivate and build, everything I've been able to effectively do, I'm coaching people how to do it, as well as showing people the blueprint on how to do it, that if you just follow the trail, right? So I say this to say that you don't have to look at it as, oh, they're bragging moments or braggadocious moments, or they're moments that are not attainable for anybody that's listening. Anything you've seen me be able to do, you can do. And in fact, I would hope that you would tap in and actually execute on some of these things, because of the simple fact that we've been taught whatever way we were taught, right? When I grew up, credit, you never get credit. When you get credit, you only use it for emergencies. That's something that
for sure. Right? Yeah, definitely.
That, to me, now that may work for somebody, right? That to me is actually asinine. That's nonsense to me. The reason why it's nonsense to me is because I've been able to do something more effectively impactful with credit. Like, for example, be able to buy properties with credit,
right,
and then make money off of somebody else's money.
Right.
So if I was to go with the the process of only using for emergencies, then how would I mean, I wouldn't have been able to effectively do what I've been able to do.
You know, my friends who do speak the language of wealth, they call it OPM, and you know what OPM is. And for those who listen, it's called other people's money.
Other people's money.
And that is the number one really way to success. I mean, even these billionaires, they're not using their money.
Right.
They're using other people's money.
But it's really, I use this analogy all the time. I said, anybody that's listening, if you've ever been to an amusement park, they have this one line that you can get into where they say, hey, you spend an extra couple dollars, you can get a fast pass.
Right.
That fast pass will allow you to skip the line and go right to the front of the line to get on the ride, right? At an amusement park.
Yep.
Credit is like that.
About $40.
Credit is like that.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if you work a regular 9 to 5 or you're an entrepreneur. If you've got access to somebody else's money, you can virtually skip the line.
Yeah.
You don't have to try to generate or save money when you can use somebody else's to get you to point A,
right,
and then point B and to even Z.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this stems from credit, right? But you don't necessarily have credit, and you don't necessarily have to have a strong credit profile to leverage other people's money. You can have other things to collateralize, or you can have a business idea. You can leverage other things in order to gain access to somebody else's money. And so, but the biggest premise is that if I get credit, I can then take somebody else's money and make more money and then pay them their money back.
Right. That's the purpose. That's the point.
And
for real.
And so for everybody that sees all of the posts where I'm showing you a $20,000 credit card or $50,000 business line of credit, all of these things with the right instruction can show you how to effectively use somebody else's money to acquire assets to then create cash flow. And I call this the 3 C's.
I love the way that you just broke that down, because everybody came into some money at one point in time. Everybody, matter of fact, every year during tax season, people come into some money. And then what happens, because like you said, you have to use it effectively, to generate. And if I was to ask you this in one plain sentence, if you were to say, if I were to, okay, I am going to ask you now. If I were to ask you, I'm going to ask you, what is your secret to success in one phrase?
Leverage is the cheat code.
Leverage is the cheat code.
Yes.
And we were talking about that earlier. There's no point of playing fair anymore, right? I mean,
right.
I remember when Trump was president, and it was a whole argument about he didn't pay his taxes, and he was like, "Well, change the tax law. I'm just doing it," And I remember that moment, like, yo, the president of the United States just literally said, "You can cheat, and it's legal."
And he's going to leverage the actual tax code, to get him more wealth or to keep some of his wealth.
Yeah. Interesting, man. I got a personal question. I gotta ask the guru, because bankruptcy. Now, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Talk about that real quick, because I know that some people don't really understand. Some people think, I remember, in the terms of 50 Cent, when he went bankrupt, he was like, y'all think I'm broke? Like, nah, that ain't the case. Many people have done that, but for people who are not in the wealth category, we don't understand what that means. Can you share a little bit on that?
I'll elaborate. Right. So I have effectively, me and my wife, we own four businesses. I would say 5, but one of them we're not operating, but we own 4 businesses. Right. So I'll give you an example. If I leveraged resources and other people's money, banks' money, not specifically Keith's money or some family member, but banks they operate on fractional lending, so it means that they can create money out of things. But anyway, literally, but if one particular business has borrowed millions of dollars and acquired assets for business B. Now, you tracking?
No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
So business A gets millions of dollars and buy assets for business B.
Mm-hmm. Cars,
Property,
equipment,
businesses,
right?
other
Other
businesses,
businesses, right? Whatever.
right? Land, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or watches that appreciate, whatever the
Right.
case, whatever they buy, this business bought,
Mm-hmm.
right? For this business. And then for some odd reason, this business goes bankrupt.
Which literally means ran out of money, right? Essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Ran out of money, no longer generating revenue, and we're going to close this business out. What happens to the assets that business B owns?
You still get to keep the assets.
Business B has nothing to do with business A.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask this question then. So what if business A bought it off for business A? Do all the assets?
So typically, if you file bankruptcy for that particular business, any of the lenders or anybody that has vested interest in anything that business A had going
Mm-hmm.
on, they could try to attach themselves to the assets.
Mm-hmm.
So
if you got land, they can come take the land.
Yeah,
essentially. Okay.
We could put this in application, right? And I would never say that I've done this before.
Right.
So essentially, Rich Before 50 is its own business. Cobra Universals is its own business. Alpha Enterprises is its own business. Wall to Wall is its own business. Cobra Media we had at one point, that could be its own business, right? So if Cobra Media buys a property and bequeath that property to Cobra Universal or a trust or whatever the structure you decide to do, and then at some point Cobra Media is no longer a media company because of competition or whatever the case may be. So we just bankrupt this business. The debt is addressed on all of the assets that Cobra Media has. And if it has no assets, it's just a business that just went away.
So when a business does file bankrupt, because I want people to really understand this,
a person should probably not stay away from that. But guess what? Here's the cool part about, I'm sorry, I quit cutting you off, but if a person files bankruptcy, you or me, right? We file bankruptcy. Credit is forgivable. There have been people that work on credit that can remove bankruptcies from your credit profile.
So okay, so this is what I'm asking. So, like you said, the debt, right? It doesn't just disappear because you file bankruptcy, does it?
So what tends to happen is if a creditor is going to charge off something that was owed to you, that was owed to them, they would then send you an IRS form that shows it as income. Charge-offs end up being sent to you with a 1099 something. I forget the form, but it would be like this was income to you.
So let's say I'm just gonna use a small number because it's easy, right? $5,000, right? And that's what you filed bankruptcy and you had debt $5,000. What happens to that $5,000? How much do you have to pay back? And I guess the simplest format.
So typically through bankruptcy, there's court filings. There's things that are determined based on, but it's solely based on the assets, right? Because you can't. If I don't have anything in terms of assets, you can make a determination to say, hey, I need to pay you $5,000 over the course of 20 years. But if I'm not generating any revenue, how are you going to get your $5,000?
Right. This business is over. Yeah.
Right. It just doesn't make sense. So at some point, the creditor, the person that lent the money, is going to at some point write the debt off.
Right.
And they're going to get it from the government, the same people that are printing checks and printing money.
FDIC, right?
They're going to get it.
Wow.
And then you're going to get a document that says that we need to treat this debt as income. And then you need to file it on your tax return.
This is how y'all know, ladies and gentlemen, that money don't really exist, because the fact that they can give it to you and then say, well, yeah, we gave them money that we didn't have anyway, so it really don't hurt us. Whatever, we were just getting interest off of it. Amazing. Man, I'm glad that you broke that down because that's something that people don't know about. People don't
Right.
understand that, especially because people don't talk about money enough.
Right.
It's not a conversation that people have. People don't like to talk about money.
Well, it's an uncomfortable situation, especially if you don't have enough.
There you go. And that's why most of us grew up. We didn't talk. We don't talk about Bruno. You know what I'm saying? Um, but moving along, man. Man, this is I've appreciated our time together, man. I've learned so much more about you than I ever know, that I ever knew,
Appreciate it.
and I see why you're able to coach, not only because you're educated on what you're doing, but because your entire life has been an experience. I mean, from coming out of Cleveland, having that experience as a young man, being involved in legal activity, going to the military, dealing with a huge, slap in the face when you get married at 19. They boost you over to Iraq. You got to stay over there for 2 years. You come back, you go to college, you get your degrees, man. I mean, you've lived multiple lives.
I
So
have.
um
I have.
at such a young age, man. And I said it already, but I'll say it again. I'm truly proud of you, man.
Appreciate it.
And I like to end this how I like to end all my shows. I ask you the final question, but I'm going to break it down. Every day, everybody's going to have a day where it's their last, no
Mhm.
matter what. The day you're born, you sign a contract to die.
Yep.
So I think people don't get the opportunity to share some impactful words prior to that happening. So I want to give you the opportunity now, man. If today was your last day on earth and you knew it, you got the opportunity to talk to your sons.
Mhm.
What would you tell your sons, man?
So I would tell my sons as well. I have a daughter as well. So, but I would tell my children and
Mhm.
anybody that I have an impact on is that the most fulfillment in life and where you can feel like you've lived a fulfilled life is when you have provided more impact to others than you've taken away.
And also, like we talked about this at the entire show. Your wife,
Yeah.
what's something that you want to. So, what would you want to say to your wife, man?
If I was to tell my wife on my dying bed, death bed, or whatever, I would tell her that you are a champion. You have remained uh, a reliable source, someone that has been loving and has never wavered on your commitment to making our marriage the best marriage it could be.
You have siblings?
Yes, I have two brothers and two sisters.
Talk to them.
If I was to talk to my siblings, I would say, and they may be definitely watching, uh, always love you, um, wish the best for you, and um, our dad would be proud. And for my sibling, my brother that doesn't have the same father as me, um, you are by far one of my best mentors, role models, slash, I don't know the word to use, but when my dad died, you were very, very pivotal in what I needed to see in how a man should operate. So
That's beautiful. And you mentioned I always like to opportunity to bring up the parents. I know you just mentioned your father passing, but it's still I still would like to hear what you would. This is your opportunity to talk to him and your mother.
yeah, for my mom, I appreciate you and I love you, and it's been amazing to have you. Um, all of those prayers when I was a kid may have been the defining moment to why I'm still here. um, that's for my mom. For my dad, if I was able to say something to him again, truly appreciate all of the gems of wisdom, and um, I will continue to to be more of an impact to others as you were to others as well.
And then I like to move on to, the immediate family. To, sometimes you got aunties that's like mom, that's like it's like a second mom, or you got a cousin that's like a brother.
Right.
But yeah, the immediate family.
Plenty of those.
Right.
Yeah, I love them all. Sister, Charles, John. I could name a whole bunch.
See, there you go. I always tell people don't
don't do the name.
Don't start doing the names.
Somebody
Right.
will be mad. You leave them out. Like, but all my auntie Shirley, like I like my aunt Stella, all of these
right.
things. Like, but I appreciate all of them because they actually have had a serious impact on who I am as an individual, from morals to even to having a drive and passion to want to succeed. And even though a lot of times we get a lot of our business sense or business acumen from other people, even when they might not have been running or operating a business themselves, right? So what do we see? What do we glean? What do we take from these individuals and from even from my uncles? They had a sense of wanting to grind and work hard and be known for the person that wanted his family to take care of their family, to provide for their family, to be an example for their family. So these things, these characteristics, they are part of my fabric, and I truly appreciate y'all. Other than that, like, I love my family. I come from an environment where it was very family centric. Although we are in different places in different states and cities now, and may not talk as much as we used to, but I definitely love all my family. If I was to die tomorrow, listen, I would hope that I've said something that has been an impact to you and your life, and know that there aren't the restrictions that were told to us, whether it was from a boss or whether it was from somebody else within the community that put barriers on us. We don't have to be confined to those, that we can actually break through. So
beautiful, man. Now see, now you got it out. You know what I mean? So this list forever. So Chris, man, I truly appreciate you.
Appreciate you, big bro.
For being on the platform, man, and sharing your knowledge and sharing your story.
Yeah.
Most importantly, because I think stories, and this is why I started doing this, because I wanted to give people stories. If you it's like, you ever seen somebody like a rapper or something, you like, man, I don't really like his music, but then you learn the story and you're like, man, I kind of rock with bro. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that's what happens with us too. When you learn somebody's story, you build a relationship with them. And that's the whole point of what I'm doing. I want people to be closer to the people that's out here, that's influencing,
Facts.
that's making an impact on the world. And like I said, I appreciate you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Chris Colbert. Christopher, I'm gonna call him Christopher. You know what I'm saying? But I know him as Chris. Y'all may know him as Rich B450. I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Proud of you too.